So any company in business today will be aware that a significant proportion of their customers and any individuals who might be looking to abuse their brand will be using the internet. It was estimated in April 2017 that there are now about 3.8 billion internet users worldwide, so more than 50% of the global population for the first time. And the internet economy is probably worth something like $4 trillion. Of course, the other thing about the internet is it provides the ability for fraudsters to abuse the names of trusted brands with ease, low cost and relative anonymity. There's a number of different types of infringement that are going to be of concern to a brand owner. And these cover things like counterfeit goods, which is going to be relevant to manufacturers of physical goods. Counterfeiting is big business and has been estimated as something like 10% of all global trade, with a total market of something like $2 trillion. There's online fraud, which is going to be relevant to financial service providers or any other organisations who hold customers' financial details. And the losses from something like phishing alone are probably at least something like $6 billion. Digital piracy, which is going to be relevant to providers of content which can be distributed in a digital format. So that's things like music, movies and TVs, software, books and so on. And it was estimated back in 2011 that something like a quarter of all web traffic is associated with the unauthorised sharing of digital content. And the total cost of the global economy of this is something like $240 billion. There's probably also going to be a number of other general brand issues which a brand owner will be concerned about. And these might include things like brand seeding, which is the appearance of a brand on a web page with a view to trying to attract web traffic to that site. There might be negative brand association, so the brand appearing in conjunction with pornography, gambling or malicious content, unauthorised claims of affiliation, and things like negative comment and boycott activity. So the first stage is the identification of content, and one of the most important areas to cover is domain names. If you consider the case of a brand, let's call it mega brand, if someone wants to set up a convincing phishing site, they might set up something like megabrandonlinelogin.com. If they want to set up a shop selling counterfeits, they may set up megabrandshop.com. So domain names are important to look at. And for most GTLDs, so that's things like the .com, .net extension, and for some country-specific extensions, the registries that oversee those publish a zone file of all registered domains. So a brand monitoring service provider can look at those to determine what domain names are out there and get pretty comprehensive coverage that way. For the other TLDs, you can do things like parallel lookups and use search engines and link crawling to find other content. In addition to domain names, certain sites, so particular marketplaces, social media sites, it might be worth monitoring those sites directly to look for content of interest. Once that content has been identified, the next stage will be classifying that content. Now, a number of brand protection service providers will use some sort of automated system which includes a rules language to classify pages on the basis of their content. And usually on the top of that, there will be some sort of manual analysis that takes place to prioritise and rank the findings that have been identified. So the first thing to point out is that enforcement is not always possible. So for things like negative comment, free speech issues may come into play. And there may be other cases, so things like affiliate trade, grey market, where it's an internal distribution issue. However, in many cases, there are several options that are open to brand owners for taking down infringing content. For most general web content, the simplest form is some sort of cease and desist notice, which can be sent to the owner of a site that's engaging in infringing activity. Sort of stepping up from that, it's possible to send notices to either the host of a website to try and get a domain dehosted, or to the registrar, which can actually get a domain suspended altogether. That generally requires proof of illegal activity, some sort of contravention of terms and conditions, maybe the domain having been registered with invalid registrant details, for example. And then beyond that, it's possible to escalate to things like legal action or other domain acquisition processes, so things like UDRP, which can enable a brand owner to transfer the domain name from an infringer to themselves. And also you can disrupt the operations of infringing websites in other ways, things like payment gateway deactivation or removal of that site's links from search engines. On other sites, so marketplaces, social media, mobile app marketplaces, generally they have some sort of IP protection program where you can enforce through that marketplace directly, usually via a notification by email or web form, although there are generally specific criteria which come into play in terms of being allowed to do that, and they vary from site to site.